Welcome back to another video. Today we'll be doing hopefully the final reassembly of my two parts to repair Amiga 500s. So in previous videos, I think there was two of them, I went through these two Amiga 500s that I have, both sold as not working for parts or repair, and I believe we got everything working. And as far as the Amigas go, I got a Gotek booted with the Amiga boot ROM on it, and I got one of the Amiga 500s to boot up finally, and then I fixed the second one. So now I've got a desk full of parts here, as you can see. So I think what I can do today is fully reassemble both of these Amigas and get them working. So I've got some additional things that I've either acquired or 3D printed or gotten in some other means so that they should both be able to work at the same time. So I have the original power supply that came with one of them here, but I only had one power supply, so I have an aftermarket one here, modern replacement. I've got the Gotek I've been using here, and then I have a second Gotek here that needs to be flashed. Maybe that's not the right one. I have a Greaseweazle, so I can make actual Amiga floppies. I've got a 3D mount, or a floppy drive mount I 3D printed to put a Gotek inside one of these, as I only have one original floppy drive here. So the second one came without a floppy, so we'll mount the Gotek internally. The one with the floppy I'd like to keep as is with the floppy inside, and so for that I have the external connector for a Gotek. What else do I have? So I've got parts of the Gotek case. I don't really need those. So here I have a video adapter. So with the one I received locally here from Facebook Marketplace, I have the video adapter so that I can do color output video. This is the original Amiga A520, but I only have one of these, so I got a video adapter to VGA, so we should be able to hook this up to a monitor as well. And I think there's more stuff still. All right, I've got some dip sockets here. I don't think we need those anymore. We've got some extra chips here. This is a ROM. I don't think we need that. I think one of the final things we needed was this. So this is an Amiga mouse adapter to USB or to PS2. Now it's not really USB. This mouse adapter only works to mouses or mice that were compatible with the PS2 protocol through the USB. So some of the original Microsoft mice could either work with USB or PS2. This isn't truly USB, it's just kind of like the pass-through to turn PS2 into USB. So anyway, I got one of those. I'm sure I have a mouse that supports it, but I also have the PS2 one, which is what I'll probably end up using. What else did I have in here? I think this is another chip. Yeah, this is one of the chips for the Amiga. I think this one tested good. And so I do actually have two of these memory boards. I haven't repaired these yet. That's next on the list. So we'll be leaving these out for today. Both of them. The other one's somewhere around here. And we'll do the assembly because these can be installed through the bottom later on once I get them fixed. I actually did pick up a second one for super cheap off of eBay. Sold as not working. So the one that came with this one, when you turned the Amiga on when it was plugged in, it wouldn't do anything. It acted like it was a short and like just nothing was happening. The one I got on eBay does let the machine turn on, and I think it does I want to say green screen, which indicates that I think one of the RAM chips is bad. So that's for a future project. We'll set that to the side. And then of course the parts Amiga one here, obviously the case is broken, so we'll be trying to glue that together as best we can today. I don't know if all the pieces are here. I think a majority of them are, so this side looks good. And this side looks pretty good, but I think it's missing this chunk right here. I think is just missing, so not a problem. And there's more stuff. This one is missing the F2 key, which I acquired. I don't know if this is just going to pop right in or not. It feels like not. So we'll need to figure out how to make that work. But at least we can, at least we have it. I think it's missing the stem inside. So we might have to figure something out there to make that work, but we've got the key. Alright, so let's start putting this stuff together. Alright, so for the first one here, no, is this the same piece of keyboard? I think it's, so maybe one here. I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. Alright, so the first thing I want to do, I've got my floppy here, so we'll just reinstall that. Like so. Then we've got the grounding strap for the keyboard here. We'll reconnect. But we want to tighten this screw up so that it doesn't float around in there. And we'll point this little connector up so we can plug a keyboard into it. Alright, we'll make sure our floppy is connected, plugged in. So we can reconnect this little grounding strap here. We can slide our keyboard in. And this one that's basically fully working now is going to be back to stock for the most part. So we can put the keyboard cover back on. Take the disc out. It's blocking things. Alright. Great. So that's pretty simple. I'm going to flip it over. So I think this one might go here. And again, I'm going to feel carefully. If I feel any sort of stress coming, I'm going to ease off and take it back out. No, see, I don't think that's the right one for there. That's too long. Let's try this one here. Ah, yeah. That goes there for sure. And that's holding the floppy drive in. So those two definitely go there. These ones are all Torx. Let's see if this is the right one for here. Yes, I believe it is. We'll do it on this side too. Yep. Let's feel right. Looks like we've got a third one here. Alright, so we'll save some of these screws. So we can put the expansion connector cover back on. Where's it go? This way. I'm going to put the bottom cover back on there. Okay. Now we've got 3 screws in the back here. I'll hold the case all together. Alright, so this Amiga 500 should be fully stock, fully repaired. The only thing we don't have now is the memory expansion card, but we don't need that, at least not for now. So we've got one ready to go. We'll test it out in a minute. Now let's set it off to the side here. Alright, so I've got my 3D mount here. Go ahead and disconnect the keyboard. Move some stuff around here. Alright. My desk has been full of Amiga stuff for weeks now, as I've been trying to figure out how all this stuff works. Like I said in previous videos, I'm not an Amiga guy, or at least I wasn't. I feel like I've learned a little bit about them, but there's so much to them that it's going to take me a long time to learn all about Amigas. So we've got our 3D printed mount here. I printed this on my 3D printer. Got a Creality Ender 3. And now I have a new Gotek that I need to put in here. But first, before we do that, we need to flash the Amiga firmware onto this one. It's not on here currently. Alright, so this is the standard Gotek. They're pretty cheap. They're floppy emulators. You can use them for PC, plug a USB drive in front, use the buttons to select what image you want to use. Yeah, and by default they won't work with Amigas. So what we'll do with this one, first take it apart. We're not going to need the shell for it anymore. Alright, and inside it's just a PCB, it's an LED, and a 7-segment display board with 3 of those displays on it. So in order to flash it, we're going to need to jumper 2 of these pins here. So you can do that with just, I guess, a solder bridge or a piece of wire. What I like to do is install a pin header on it. Just makes it a little easier. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so we need a strip of 4 and a strip of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to solder these guys in, and then we can easily make that jumper connection we need to make. So you definitely don't have to do this. There's probably easier ways to do it, just with, like I said, a piece of wire. You could even solder bridge it maybe. But I like putting pin headers in. I got so many of them. I hardly ever get to use them, so when I do, it makes me happy. So let's kind of tack that first one in. Alright, with those tacked into place, now we can finish soldering them in. Alright, easy enough. So if you have any soldering skills at all and happen to have pin headers, it's just super easy to do it this way. So now we've got our 2 pin header blocks in here, and we can put the jumper where we need to put it. So let's go in the other room and do that. So I've got my USB A to A cable, and let's go ahead and bring the Greaseweazle along as well, and I can show you how to use it to make Amiga native floppy drives. They're not drives, floppy disks. Alright, so here we are on my modern Windows computer, and I've got a website pulled up here for retro32.com, and this is a guide for how to flash your Gotek to work with an Amiga. And no tools, except, you know, we soldered the pin headers on. And you probably, I guess you technically don't need to take the Gotek apart to do this, because the pads are exposed. So yeah, I'm sure no tools is accurate. So going through, they tell you not to break out the shell of your Amiga to put your Gotek in there. You know, we don't want to do that. But here's what we need. Gotek drive, so we've got that right here. Our USB A to A cable. So these exist. This is technically not a cable that is within the USB specification. There shouldn't be an A to A type cable, but they do exist. Typically, like UPSs that have a USB interface to your computer come with used to come with USB A to A cables. Piece of cable. So this is what we're going to use to jump, and for that I'm just going to use a little jumper. Flash drive, USB flash drive, and then a Windows computer, of course. So let's go ahead and get all of this stuff downloaded. So I've actually already got this downloaded. Hopefully I can find it here, but it's on my computer. And here is the driver that we need to install, flashing the floppy firmware. Alright, so this is where we're going to pick up. If you're going to do this yourself, just follow the guide. It tells you what to install, how to install the driver, etc., etc. So this is what the normal Gotek would look like. Mine looks just like that. So I have an extra jumper on mine, jumping J6 or J5 and JA. I don't know what that's for, but that's how it came. So we'll leave it for now. So now he's telling us here to jump J3 to whatever is next to it. It's not labeled. So I'll take my little jumper, I'll put that on here. So that's just going to short those 2 pads together. Nice and simple. Alright. So he's using wires. He's just holding them with his hands. It doesn't take too long to run it, but I'd be afraid that I would let go when I did it. So, alright. Now that our pins are securely bridged, or in my case jumped, we can go ahead and plug that in. So I'm going to take my USB A to A cable. And I'll plug one end into the Gotek. And I'm going to plug the other end into a USB hub on my computer. So Windows detected it. I already have the driver installed, so now we can run the Artery ISP programmer. So let me get that launched. All right, so it tells us the first thing we want to do is change Artery to English. So that's this drop down here. All right, and then it says now select USB DFU from the drop down. So that is here. And we should see our Gotek. We do. Yeah, it looks the same. So click next. And next again. So currently it is protected in protected mode. So the first thing we're going to do is unprotect it. So we go to this screen. So I'm going to say protection, disable. And then we hit next. All right. So it is disabled access protection successfully. It didn't actually take too long to run. So we got the same screen. So now we need to collect the option to download to device. So let's go, let's close it and reopen it. All right, next. We'll skip the new version again. Oh, and this time you can see it says target is readable. So we'll hit next. So there's our target. And we want to download to device. So we need to pick our file. This is the FlashFloppy. So we pick the FlashFloppy 18405-ST105, and then the version number of the file and .hex. So in the FlashFloppy zip, there are like DFU versions, hex versions. We want the hex version. So we've got that selected. Yep, there. So they're in the hex subdirectory, not DFU. And we can verify after download, like they have. And then we can hit next. So okay, so it's going to erase the current data that's on the ROM, and now it's going to download the FlashFloppy ROM to it. And then it's going to verify that that's done. And there we go. So we got the same thing they did. It took us almost half as long, only half as long. All right, so now we need to set up our USB drive. All right, so I've got a USB drive plugged in here. This is just a 2 GB USB drive. It's not very big at all, but it's going to be big enough for what we need. So then in the download from up top, we just need to grab the files and drop those in there. So those are in the FlashFloppy folder. So we need hxcsdfe.cfg and autoboot.hfe, and those are in the hxc compat mode folder. So we'll drop autoboot in and hxc sdfe cfg. So yeah, they show the layout here, and that's what they want it to look. So the ADF are the actual disk files themselves. So first thing I want is to get a Workbench ADF on here. So I happen to have a Workbench 12.adf I can throw on there. And that should be all we need. So let's go ahead and eject this drive. All right, so I've got my Greaseweazle hooked up. Carefully pull it up. So it's USB-C down here to my computer through standard floppy cable to my standard Sony drive, and then I'm using a just a standard like 4-pin connector wire to get power to the floppy drive from the Greaseweazle. All right, so I've got the software already downloaded and unzipped. So in the Greaseweazle folder here, we can just run GW space/in or not slash space info, and that'll tell us about our Greaseweazle. Make sure that it can seize it. So it's on COM3. It's running firmware 1.6. Whatever, all good. So what I have here is a 800K floppy. So it's just got the one hole. Oh, I can't focus. It's okay. There's no second hole because it's not high density. It's my understanding that once you have a high density disk that's been formatted, you can't format it as 800K and that it will work reliably. I believe if you have, and I've done this, I think 1.44 meg disks that haven't been formatted, that were shipped unformatted from the factory, you can use as 800K disks, and that seems to work just fine, though some people will tell you that that doesn't work either. But anyway, I've got a real 800K disk here today, so What we want to do is GW space write, format equals Amiga DOS, drive equals. Now a lot of the examples tell you to use like drive A, drive B, but in my case that didn't work, and I couldn't figure it out until I tried just messing with it, and I set to drive 1, and that worked. So I don't know why documentation says A, B, but 1, 2 seems to work better for me. And then the name of our file, what's that called? Workbench 12ADF, right? So let me just hit enter, and that's going to do a flux write of the disk from the disk image. So instead of using the standard Windows PC sort of methodology for writing tracks and data in sectors, it's actually just using whatever the magnetic resonance was at each specific spot in the disk, so it can be any format, and that's what makes Greaseweazle so cool. So there's not a way to write an Amiga floppy on a Windows PC. Just the format's wrong, the drives don't work. But with Greaseweazle, it's just taking control of the drive, and it's just writing those magnetic areas to the disk, so it's going to be fully Amiga compatible. Alright, so that's going to take a little bit. It's not too bad, but we've got our Gotek here. We're about to have a boot floppy. So once this is done, I'll meet you back at the bench, and we can test these things out. Alright, so I'm back at the bench. I've got my newly flashed Gotek. So let's go ahead and test it out and make sure that it works. Alright, so plug in floppy connection and plug in power. We'll hit the switch here. So it should boot into the FlashFloppy menu here. And I've got my keyboard plugged in so we can navigate. Yep, that looks good. And I ended up copying a couple more files to it, like games and stuff. But let's go ahead and run Workbench. So let's go ahead and reboot it. Control Amiga. Alright, so we've got everything set how we wanted. So let's just hit F10 to save and reboot. So that's going to write the file and reboot the machine. Alright, so while that's booting up into Workbench, I've got the PS2 adapter for the Amiga mouse here. I have a PS2 mouse. This is a IBM PS2 mouse. Got the ball, and it was $2 at Goodwill. So let's plug that in this way, and then we'll plug it into the mouse port here. So now if we switch back to this view, we can see, we have our mouse working. What does that say? Insert. Oh, welcome. Oh, I can't read. Yeah, I think this particular Workbench image has some issue I've been having with it. So I just ended up copying the files from my other Gotek USB drive to this one. And I think somehow that image got corrupted. So I need to download a new one. But that's okay, we don't really care. So let's switch to 3, and let's give it the old reboot. Control Amiga. Alright, there we go. Cool. So this Gotek's working, so the next thing we can do is start with the install of it. So let's flip this off. Back to here. So we can take the keyboard out for now. So I've got my 3D printed bracket here. So I've got a spot for the LCD or LED 7-segment display to go. I know it's a pretty tight fit, but I did a test fit and I had to shave a little down. But I got it in there eventually, so let's just work our magic on it. There we go, just kind of clicks in. And this sits here, and the Gotek sits on it about like so. So that's kind of how it all goes. So we just need a couple of screws to get everything in place. Alright, there we go. So we'll temporarily remove this. And we'll kind of stick our floppy cable underneath here so everything fits. Now obviously we can't reconnect this ground to the floppy because it's no longer metal, it's plastic now. We're probably okay to leave it disconnected. So that just leaves the top case, which is going to need a little bit of work. Alright, so our case, when I got this, it was already broken a little bit, but I unfortunately made it worse. And I had it sitting here loose, and I think something landed on it and completely broke it off. And it wasn't in the best shape anyway, so I'm not too bummed, but it would have been less work to repair how it was versus how it is now. Alright, so I'm going to try to hold it tight and correctly aligned. I can see this has actually already been repaired once here, so that repair predates my ownership of this one. So we'll try to hold it tight, correctly aligned. And we'll pop a bit of super glue right across the crack here. And then we'll take some baking soda. And sprinkle that on there. The baking soda acts as a catalyst, and it makes the super glue firm up right away. I'm not a chemist. I can't tell you why, but I can tell you that it does actually work. Alright, so with that joint together, and note I'm doing this from the bottom side too, so that none of this mess of super glue and baking soda will be visible on the top. Alright, so with that one done, let's move on and do our next joint here. This one. Put some super glue. Try to get some baking soda out of here. Sprinkle that on. I'll come back with a little more super glue just for added structure, and then of course we'll get that to catalyze right away too. Alright, then we got one left here. So super glue. Baking soda. Super glue. Baking soda. So we'll get our Amiga 500 back out. Very carefully put the top on. And I think we have a couple of screws left from the original one that was saving for this one. So upon checking the case here, all three of these screw holes are broken. This one's got a little bit of life left, so maybe we can get this one corner in, but the rest of these are all no good. I guess for somebody who didn't know how to take apart an Amiga, try to rip this one apart without taking all the screws out. Or maybe it was dropped, who knows. Alright, now this one unfortunately did not come with the bottom cover, nor did it come with the expansion slot cover, but that's okay. So this guy is a bit of a jalopy, with the case being kind of trashed, but hey, we can't all be beautiful on the outside. Some of us have to only be beautiful on the inside. Alright, so let's clear some things up here. I want to get both of these guys running at the same time. That was the ultimate goal of this restoration. Alright, so I thought I had a monitor somewhere that could take a 15 kilohertz input, and I'm sure I do, but I tried a couple and none of them worked. So the Amiga video to VGA, not running, currently just running the mono out, but everything's working. So I've got my floppy here. Let's go ahead and insert it. Let's see if we can boot off of it. That looks good. We've got our mouse. And of course, this one over here is booted up into trainer. Okay, there we are, booted up into Workbench. And you can see that we also have our FF Manager disk loaded. That's the modified Gotek firmware. So if we run this, we can go through and select what floppies we have loaded. Alright, so let's load Battle Chess. That's lot 1. We might as well load A-Train 2 and 3 as well. So F10. And of course that'll reboot. Alright, and now that it's rebooted, we have our Battle Chess image loaded. Let's go ahead and run that. And we don't have enough RAM to run it. So that's going to be the final part of my Amiga repair series. I've got both of these cards now. And here's the other one. Right, so we've got 2 cards. The battery leaked on both. I've removed the battery. Like I said, one of them will cause the machine to go to, I believe it's a green screen, which I think needs bad RAM. The other one just completely causes the system to not do anything. So I'm thinking I could probably get one of these working, but that's going to be for another video. So anyway, the point of today's video was to get both of my Amigas assembled and running at the same time, because now I have 2 power adapters, I have enough Goteks and real floppies to do things, and I've learned a ton about Amiga 500s putting these together. So really cool system. I'm excited to get around to playing with it some more. So join me for a future video when I get around to fixing these RAM cards. But for now, I'm going to have to find some games that take up a little bit less RAM than what's built into the system. Anyway, I'm really happy. I've had these Amiga 500s on my bench in pieces for at least a month, if not longer. So I'm really happy that I got this project completed. So that's going to free up my bench for some more stuff. But also really happy to have 2 working Amiga 500s out of 2 parts machines. So always a win saving these old systems from just turning into parts for other systems. Hope you enjoyed watching, and we'll see you next week in the next video.
Hi guys! Make sure to like and subscribe, and watch more of our videos later. Bye!